Hello, today we are going to learn how to use Visual Studio Code in order to search inside text files and replace. So Microsoft Visual Studio Code, also referred to as VS Code. Let's install it on my machine. I'm on Kubuntu 23.04, which is a Linux operating system. I need to download a deb file. Let's put it in here. Overwrite. Okay. Where is this file? Let's install it as a super user. Asks for my super user password. And it just installed the same version over the same version, so it's not actually doing much. Visual Studio Code was already installed on this machine. Okay, and now we're going to take a random existing Git repository, and we're going to do a branding exercise where we rename the repository to something else. So let's see that repository, let's say this one, and let's rename from kdsrc-build to something else. So kdsrc-build will become k meta build system, like this. Okay. So the first thing that we want to see if is that this repository works, similar to running its tests. And then we make sure, as we replace source code, rename source code, and rename files, that the Git repository continues working correctly. So for that, I'm going to open a terminal. So let's see if it works. Okay, it did. No error, success. So the test is actually this command line. Okay, let's look at the Git history. Okay, we'll want to go back to the master branch, which is this one. We need to undo our local changes. Okay. Go back to master and make sure the local master branch points to the same git commit as the remote master branch. So that's reset master branch here hard. Okay, so we're in a situation where both the git master branch and the git origin master branch point to the same git commit, which is what we want. Okay, let's run the test again. No configuration file is present. Just a second, let me configure the software again. Okay, so this is our current situation. The test runs correctly, and we're on the master branch, which points to the remote master branch, and there's no unstaged or staged changes. Okay, so we'll replace text in files will rename files, and directories will run the test, and if the test passes, then in order to code fearlessly, we'll do git commits. Okay, so the very first thing that we're going to do is to actually rename the directory from kdsrc-build to kmbs. How do we do that? Let's just copy it recursively. KMBS. Okay. Let's open Git GUI in here. Okay, so Git looks okay. We're in the new directory, which is named KMBS. And let's run the test. And it works correctly. Okay. So the directory is this one. Let's make this smaller. Orthodox file manager Krusader. Let's navigate to the directory where the Git repository was checked out, was Git cloned, which is KMBS, this one. Okay, and now it's time to start Visual Studio Code, which I can start it by specifying the name of the executable, which is just code, and then the directory that Visual Studio Code should open, which is the current directory dot, so ~kd/src/kmbs, and then I background the process. Visual Studio Code backgrounds itself, so this is a rare exception where you can start a graphical user interface application from the command line and you do not need to put an and ampersand character at the end. Okay, so this is how Visual Studio Code looks like. The very first thing that I'm going to do is rename the actual executable. So as you see, the test runs this file and this parameter. So this is a command line. This is an actual executable file, not a binary one, but a Perl script plain text file, but we're on Linux, so it's marked with the chmod +X to be executable flag. Okay, so let's look at that. So this file is not a directory, is executable for my Linux user, for my Linux user group, and for everybody else. Okay, so let's rename this file. How do we do that? This kdsrc-build. Let's see how we rename in Visual Studio Code. F2 rename. So this becomes KMSB. Enter. And now the test becomes KMSB. Testing. Okay, and the test is successful. Let's see what's happening in here. So Visual Studio tries to be useful and open this directory as a Perl project, which is, I'm not sure if we want to do this. Let's uninstall the Perl tools and extensions from Visual Studio Code. What else do I have installed? Okay, so no Visual Studio plugin extension is installed in Visual Studio Code. Let's delete this directory. So the hidden directory .vscode/perl-lang. Revert changes, delete files. Okay, so these are the actual changes that we did. We just renamed the file kdsrc-build to kmsb. Shows that we have completely deleted the file kdsrc-build and created a totally new file kmsb. Okay, so this would be renamed entry point executable file. Okay, what else can we do in here? So there's this configuration file kdsrc-buildrc. Can we actually rename this one? So this buildrc f2. So this should be com ksmbrc. ksmb kmsb meta build system. Meta build system kms. Okay, like this. So what did we rename the executable to? Meta build system. This name was wrong. Meta build system. This. Okay. So unfortunately we did the wrong git commit where we renamed the file kdsrc-build to the wrong name. So now we're going to look at the git history. Says on top of the remote origin master, there's just one commit which has the correct git message, but it has the wrong contents. So let's amend the last commit. And we should add this one and this one. So now the wrong commit has the correct title. The correct file was deleted. Meta build system, the correct file was added. Now the only git commit that we have on top of remote origin master is correct. Okay, we cannot run the test because the test requires this configuration file. So let's fix this thing. So we need to search for the configuration file, which is this one. This seems to be hard-coded in many places. So we're not going to edit the doc directory for now. So let's exclude the doc directory. What other files should we exclude? The translation, so PO. And the Vim directory. What is this? Let's do the replaces by hand. So kmeta build system rc. So kdsrc minus build setup is a Perl file. So we certainly need to replace in here. Then inside of the sample file, it's just a comment, but let's do it. Just a comment. Another comment. So doc string, documentation string. Let's do this one. So all of the KF files. So by clicking on this button, it replaces all of the occurrences of kdsrc minus buildrc with kmbsrc inside of the given file. So this replaces just this occurrence, and this replaces in the entire file. So let's do that to those replaces file by file. Okay. This is the entry point, Perl file, plain text, executables. Certainly we need to replace everywhere in here. This is documentation or description of the project for users. So we could replace in here also. We didn't select full words and match case, which we should have. Okay, so cute, yes, cute, yes. What is this? This is the top level readme. Yes, we need to do it in here. Roadmap, no. What is this? A sample file. Let's do it in here. Completions, yes. All of the Perl files. We need to replace in all of the Perl files without actually looking at the matches. It's these, I don't know, for tests or something. So we could exclude T. We did not exclude PO. What's the syntax? Okay, so the syntax is comma separated, or you could put a comma in the space, and then syntax similar to the .gitignore file. Okay, what is this readme vim thing? So this is the vim directory, which should we exclude or not? Don't use vim. Let's do it in this directory also. So 1, 2, 3 files. Let's do it also in the roadmap file because it's a top level file. Okay, and now the moment of the test. And surprise, surprise, it works. So this is the configuration file. We've replaced the name of the configuration file from the previous name, kdsrc-buildrc, to the new name, kmeta-build-system-rc, in many places, in many files. So top-level files such as readme.md, roadmap, configuration files. So let's see the configuration files. It's only present in the documentation of the configuration files. Okay, more configuration files. These vim configuration files. The entry point executable. So there could be two names for this file, either .kdsrc-buildrc, so hidden configuration file, or kdsrc-buildrc. Not a hidden file, but it's inside of a hidden directory or inside of the current directory. Okay, so this is the configuration file itself, which we should not add to version control. These are Perl files. Everything looks okay. This is user-facing information. And this is another configuration file. Okay. So the actual configuration file kmbsrc should exist in the current directory, but it's specific to my machine. That's why it should be git ignored, but we cannot add it to git ignore. We should add it to exclude. So let's do that. So there's a hidden.git directory in here because it's a git repository. Then the info directory and the exclude. Okay. And the name of the file is this one. Where are we? Here. Ctrl V, Ctrl S. And this reminds us to use Visual Studio Code to search in files which are git ignored and excluded by git, which we do by unchecking this checkbox which says use exclude settings and ignore files. Why didn't I save the file? Did. So there's a backup exclude file generated by the text editor. Okay, because it ends with a tilde. So we are going to not do the replace here. Okay, so it looks okay now. Rescan, the file should disappear from unstaged changes. The change that we did to the .git directory /info/exclude file is not going to be visible in Git changes, but it's important for us. So let's copy this information. Ctrl+C. So we exclude some files using the hidden file .gitignore, but we also exclude some files from Git using the hidden directory .git/info/exclude. And in this file, we have these two files excluded. We can delete the backup file. Delete. Okay. Let's look at the git commit again. So we just replaced the configuration file name, the name of the configuration file. Commit. Let's look at the history. So first we renamed the executable, then the configuration file. We are going to run the test again, just in case. And it works great. Okay, let's see what other files can we rename. These two configuration files. So we searched for the name of the configuration file. So kdsrc-build rc inside of the content of the files, but we did not search in the names of the files. So how do we do that? Okay, so we'll need to rename these two. I don't know how to search for in file names in Visual Studio Code. This search is inside of the files. Here we could give it the names of files to include. And in here we put what, a space. Okay, so let's see if we can rename in here. Nope. Okay, like this. F2. Ctrl+V. Or does it go there? No. So Ctrl+S to search and KDE -build RC. With any extension, we need any other extra words or letters or characters in front or after, and it only searches inside of file names. Fit to list box, and let's rename them here. So we said we will not touch the directories T and PO and doc. Okay, so we renamed files in here. We will not do it for the T subdirectory, and we will do it for the Vim subdirectory. Okay, and then back search inside of files. Okay, so this should be it. This is a sample configuration file, so it should have the name of the new configuration file. And then for Vim syntax, it says file type KMBSRC. So we need to rename in here. Let's run the test to see that we did not introduce any issues. It works. So we needed to rename some files, and we could not use Visual Studio Code. I used my orthodox file manager, so orthodox file managers are good for this, for searching inside the names of files and for renaming files. So examples of orthodox file managers: Total Commander, Windows Commander, Krusader, Double Commander, Midnight Commander. Okay, so what we did in here, rename files for this rename. Okay, what else can we do? The build setup file. So this thing becomes I can see it in here in the file name. Let's search in the file contents. We need to search for this string. in order to search in Visual Studio Code, you either go Ctrl+Shift+F, which just switches you to the search tool view. Okay, so this is a place where you have tool views. There's one which is called Explorer. Which you can also go to using the Visual Studio Code main menu, and then View and Explorer, Ctrl+Shift+E. And the other tool window is View Search, Ctrl+Shift+F. And then an extension of this tool window is Ctrl+Shift+G. Where are you now? Ctrl+Shift+H, which is the replace. The same shortcuts work for me in Visual Studio non-code. So Ctrl+Shift+F, searching all of the files in the solution, or inside all of the files inside of the project, and Ctrl+Shift+H to replace text inside files. Okay, so we want this thing. Case sensitive, whole words, maybe not whole words. We'll keep excluding forever these three directories, docpo and t. And we need to replace that with this string. So there's a top level cmakeLists.txt file. Where we did not replace yet KDE-src-build, and we'll need to do that. Okay, so replace inside of the file. Then this is a Perl file. We should replace here. Inside of the top level readme file, yes. Inside this sample environment file. And the other configuration file for bash. Okay, so then let's do the same thing for KDE-src-build. This. GitLab CI, yes. Authors, yes. cmakeLists.txt. Yes. Not sample, what's this? Configuration, parts of the configuration file. 1, 2, some documentation. Okay, so this line, yes, but then this other line, no, but we'll put it in our list. Okay, next, the part of the configuration file, yes, yes, yes. Okay, and this is the entry point, the main executable. Correct. Correct. Configuration file. licensing, description for user, top level readme MD. The two bash files, auto completion. This will break things. So I can see minus modules. So KDSRC minus build appears in the name of various files. Docker files. Perl source code. So this Git repository is mainly Perl. This tool KDSRC-build is written in Perl. So all of these PM files are actually used by KDSRC-build tool. So I want to replace inside of the entire directory modules/ksb. So how do I do that? I open Visual Studio Code in this directory. So modules, KSB, Visual Studio Code started in the current directory, Ctrl+Shift+H. From this, case sensitive to this. And we replace everything, replace all, Ctrl+Alt+Enter. Okay. Let's wait in the first Visual Studio Code to see if the replaces are visible. How do we do that? Like that. I needed to edit the search string because there's no refresh. There is this thing. Okay. It did not refresh automatically, which is a good thing because you might be editing this list or clicking here and you do not want the buttons and the match lines in the search results to move under your finger while you intend to click on this button. Okay, what's this thing? So I said we should not do this, but we need to. Roadmap, yes. Import, yes. So this is inside of the Vim directory, yes. And inside of the Vim directory. Great. We did a ton of replaces and we replaced more than just the KDSRC-build itself. We also replaced for KDSRC-build something. So for file names longer than KDSRC-build. Such as underscore KDE minus build underscore modules. Okay, let's commit all of these things. Okay, what did we do? We did this replacement. Okay, and now we're going to look at the file names again. So Ctrl S and without an RC. So could contain any characters, then KDE minus build, and then any characters. So we should exclude the PO directory. How do we do that? Okay. Do not search inside of the T directory. How do we do that? Space separated folder names. O T. Okay, so that worked. PO, T, and doc. Let's also exclude the doc. Okay, so we're down to just 4 files that need to be renamed. Okay, this is a file that's excluded in .git/info/excludes. F2. Okay, so F2. This thing Ctrl V. This thing Ctrl V. This thing Ctrl V. This thing Ctrl V. Search again, Ctrl S with exclusions. This glob for file names to find. What about directories? So it searched both in files and directory names. Okay. Let's do a commit with this one, and I'm not very confident that it will build. It will run the tests correctly, but we'll see. Okay, replace. And now for the test. Nothing. No KDE projects KMBS. That's because we'll need to also edit this Git repository to replace kdsrc-build with KMBS. So let's see if we can do that. So it's called sysadmin Visual Studio Code in here. Ctrl+Shift+F, Ctrl+Shift+H, this thing. And this thing. We cannot rename it here because then we need to be very careful because the tool goes on the internet, finds the Git repository of this tool, and it downloads it. But there's no such thing for KMBS. So we're going to want to keep the old Git repository. So in the Git repository, kdsrc-build should rename, but we'll name the project KMBS in here in sysadmin repo metadata. Okay, so this is a website, not important. Super build does not exist, and then here. So we'll put the new name. Replace these. Back. How do we undo? Okay, so no websites, no unmaintained, this one. So replace line 3, and it jumped in the wrong place. Jumped one line, the tool window, made it such that if I keep clicking on my mouse, first it changes line 4, and then it changes the entire file. So click once to replace line 4. And then if I click again, it will replace both lines 5 and 7. So do not click. Think a bit before actually clicking. So project path should be left unchanged. Same for repo path. Okay, this is websites unmaintained. And this is the same thing. So replace identifier and where are you? And name. Do not replace project path and repo path. These are just comments. This does not do anything, so let's try now. So it overrode my changes. So that's all there was. Visual Studio Code, the best tool that I know for replacing inside file contents. And the best tool that I know for replacing in file names is the Orthodox File Manager. So file names, we want to search and rename using an Orthodox File Manager. File contents, we search and replace using Visual Studio Code. We open Visual Studio Code in exactly the directory that we want, a subdirectory or a working folder of a Git repository. I do that by starting Visual Studio Code from the command line with the current directory. I navigate to that directory and I go code space dot. Dot means the current directory. And then Ctrl+Shift+F to search in all of the contents of all of the files inside of the directory that's loaded in Visual Studio Code, and Ctrl+Shift+H to replace in side of the contents of the files from the directory that's loaded in Visual Studio Code. Thank you.